Well, the Joker 2 finally came out. It's been 5 years since the first one, and I have to say the first one is one of my favorites, so I was really expecting this one to be kind of similar. I really loved all the themes in the first one, the way the story was told, this new vision for a character we've known for so many years. But what the heck was the second one? Oh my god, this has to be one of the most bizarre movies I've seen in a long time, and not just because of the content of the movie. I feel like the movie had a lot of good things going on. I just feel like it was just a project that had to pass through so many filters, and it still came out the way it did. Now, let me explain why. I have to really go through every single one of the things that I thought were weird in this movie in order to explain my point. But the movie's just, I don't know how to describe it. So I'm gonna just go over the whole movie, review it, and start with the positives because every time I do a negative review, I gotta start with the positives to just like explain what I liked about it, and then go into like all the things I found weird, the things I found just strange. But yeah, let's get into the movie. So, what is the Joker 2 about? So, obviously, the first movie made $1 billion or something like that, the highest R movie in the history of the movies until Deadpool and Wolverine. So, the movie itself was obviously going to get a sequel. I think it was very obvious that the Joker was going to get a sequel at this point, but they said it was going to be like the last one and it was just going to be a two-part story. And I was like, okay, I trust in Todd Phillips. I think he's a great director. I love the Hangover trilogy. And I actually really enjoy the Hangover 3. I think the way he did that was really great. So I was like, okay, he's going to end the story in a way that makes sense and that it continues the awesome things of the first one. But that is not what happened here. What happened here was so much weird. I think this movie is kind of like a meta exploration of the Joker itself, like the way it impacted the culture, and I really felt like it insulted my intelligence at some points because the movie feels like a kind of like a parody and kind of itself, but also like a diss on the fans of the original Joker. So, anyways, let's get into the plot. So, the first movie ends with, Arthur Fleck being arrested. He gets thrown into an asylum, and then he just starts going on a journey of self discovery. He's going to go on trial over the murders of the first movie, and he meets Harley Quinn, who is played by Lady Gaga, and more on her later. But the way they interact, I think it was good. I think that's one of the positive aspects of the movie. I like the relationship between Arthur Fleck and Lee. It doesn't feel like it feels kind of different from other interpretations of the character, for example, in the animated movies and series and Suicide Squad, which had like a few scenes between them. I thought the movie just didn't go into there a lot, so it was kind of nice to see that in the big screen because these are two very beloved characters, and especially their relationship. But then at the same time, the relationship like kind of like devolves into really weird. It goes into a really weird direction, especially with all the musical numbers. But at the end of the day, that's one of the positives. I feel like there were some like good scenes between them. For example, when Harley Quinn lights a piano on fire, and then the inmates escape, they try to escape after that, and they get caught, and they like share like these kind of like nice and like quote unquote moments. I thought it was cool. It's kind of like those just weird guilty pleasure movies. For example, I really love Sucker Punch. I feel like that movie is not very well beloved. That's one of my favorite Zack Snyder movies, and it has like kind of like those weird moments that it's like, okay, this is kind of like, just guilty pleasure. But at the same time, I think the relationship is just kind of like goes into strange directions, especially with the musical numbers, and then towards the end of the movie, like she kind of stops loving Arthur Fleck because he doesn't want to be the Joker anymore. So she's kind of like more in love with his crazy aspect, and then he kind of goes like through periods of self-reflection. This is just like a very weird version of the Joker. Like we don't see him become like himself from the first one. And that goes into some of the problems. I'm gonna go more into the problems of the movie later, but I just feel like the movie just didn't have enough of the Joker itself. It's more like Arthur Fleck just exploring his character, and that goes into a lot more negatives than positives. So then he goes into trial, this is one of the most criticized aspect of the movies, is that it goes into a very, very lengthy, like probably over half of the movie is just his trial and mixed in with musical numbers and mixed in with these like really bizarre scenes. But it's just like a courtroom drama, and I don't think that's a negative per se. It's just like I love courtroom dramas. I think is really nice. For example, I really liked what was that movie last year? It was Anatomy of a Fall. It was just like basically all courtroom drama, and I was like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. But I feel like in the context of a DC movie, I feel like at a certain point it got too much, it got too boring. I was like, okay, this is all the movie. Like I feel when you go to the movie, you want to see something more, and I feel like it didn't really hit that. As like if we want to go see a Joker movie, you want to see him like do insane crap. You go back to like Heath Ledger's interpretation in The Dark Knight. Like even though his scenes, I feel like those scenes with Heath Ledger were not very much in the like there were not enough of those scenes in the movie, and you're like, okay, this is what are like the highlights of the film, and that's not something you see in the Joker movies, especially in this one. Like in the first one, it was just towards the end where you see like these like plot elements that you're like, oh my god, this is the actual character of the Joker. And here it's just basically null. Like there's a couple scenes where he paints his face in the court, but it's just like really weird. Like he goes into this like really strange accent that makes no sense, and well, not even in the first movie. He starts talking like, "Oh, my name is the Joker, and you want to help me do this, and I want to do that, and can you explain me why?" Like it's just so weird, and it's like, but that that doesn't take away also from Joaquin Phoenix and his interpretation of the character. I feel like he's still really really good. Like, and I got something I have to mention. I really love Joaquin Phoenix's commitment to the character, especially the way he just loses weight. Like in the beginning of the movie, you see him with basically, and like in the bones, like he doesn't have any muscle. Like you're like, oh my god, he dropped so much weight for this role again. And in the end, they give him this script. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, then the movie continues, and then we get to a couple scenes that are kind of like more, like stuff more happens a little bit more. Like, towards the end of the trial, he gets convicted, and then there, like, a bomb sets off that just leads to the climax of the film. And just nothing happens after that. I feel like, well, the end is kind of shocking, spoiler alert, but he dies at the end. They basically stab him, and then the true Joker, like, I don't know if it's the true Joker or somebody who's like a continue the legacy of the Joker, because he starts carving up his face like Heath Ledger. But I think it was just really strange the way the story was handled. I feel like there was a lot of moving parts that don't lead anywhere. And towards the end, he dies, so nothing else matters. I don't know how to feel about this movie. I'm still processing it after seeing it a couple days ago. But the movie itself, just I don't know what happened here. I feel like I'm gonna say next. It just feels like a very hard critique of the fans of the movie. And now we're going to go into the musical numbers. So like I said before, Harley and Joker's relationship wasn't good in the movie, but there were some scenes that were just like really weird and awkward. I feel like more like a Wattpad story, like somebody, like a 13-year-old girl wrote in her room, like the whole relationship thing. It's like including with the musical numbers, the way they interact. It just feels so weird. It's like, oh, your madness matches my madness. Like some cringe like that. For example, there was like a weird phrase in the original Suicide Squad, like she was my queen and I'm her king, and something like that. I don't remember. It's just some cringe somebody made up. And that's kind of like the feeling I got in a couple scenes. Like I said before, in a couple areas, it dives into guilty pleasure territory, but not enough of the movie to justify it. And I gotta say, the musical numbers were not as bad. I feel like the music was good in some places, especially with Lady Gaga's voice. But I feel like they included Lady Gaga just so she could sing, and that like provided some awkward moments. And you're like, okay, this is just Lady Gaga. It's not even like Harley Quinn. So it kind of like took me off the whole experience. But yeah, it's just the movie's full of moments like that. It's full of just weird situations, and I can see why people don't like the movie. It's just weird, and it feels very meta in all the worst ways. And that's for a very good reason. I feel like the original Joker just struck a big chord with a lot of people, with the themes of loneliness, of being rejected by society, and how you react to those things. And that is I feel like that's what Todd Phillips said. It's like, oh my god, this movie is inspiring people in all the worst ways. So I'm just gonna go and say fuck you and make a movie that is just completely the opposite of that, just to rip on those people. And at the end of the day, I guess it worked. I guess like the objective was completed. I don't think this movie's gonna make a lot more money than the first one. I feel like people are just gonna not watch it because of that. Word spreads fast around the internet. So I think DC is gonna have to think hard about what they approve and how they go with sequels and all that. But yeah, for now, this movie's definitely gonna go into the long list of movies that are great with the first one, and then the sequel just completely sucks. Like Megamind, Pacific Rim. There's a lot of movies that are just not good after the first one. But yeah, I think I've ranted enough about this movie. Joker Folie is just really weird, really awkward, and I don't recommend it. I feel like it doesn't even hit guilty pleasure territory. Like I might see it again in the future, just once, to see if my feelings change. But for now, I'm just like, yeah, this movie isn't it. But anyways, those are all my thoughts. As a final score, I'm going to give it a 50 out of 100. I don't think it's the worst movie I've seen in the world, but it's definitely just very awkward, very, like, the ideas just don't land. And I feel like it had to pass, like, so many filters at DC movies that at a certain point you wonder, like, if this was intentional. But yeah, anyways, those are all my thoughts. So have a great day, everybody, and stick around for more videos.